In this lesson, we're going to do a series of mini projects to help us learn some of the more intermediate and advanced tools available in FreeCAD. First, we're going to learn a little bit more about the Revolution tool. Now, the Revolution tool is similar to the Pad tool in that it allows us to create new solids from sketches. But the way it does it is a little different. Let's see why. I'm going to create a new sketch. I'm going to choose, instead of the XY plane, this time I'm going to choose the XZ plane. What I'm going to do now with this sketch is I'm going to create a profile, but it's going to be the profile of a chess pawn as viewed from the side. And it's only going to have half of the profile. It's not going to be the entire shadow. So I'll start with 2 lines. I'll go make one 15 long at the base, going off to the right. And I can either hit 0 to set the angle to 0, or I can just click near the x-axis to give it an automatic vertical constraint. I'm going to move our dimension down just to get it out of the way. Okay, now I'll add a second line starting from the origin, going up, and I'm going to set it to just about, let's say, 45. I'm going to click just near the y-axis to automatically give it a vertical constraint. Okay? So like I said, I'm going to define half of the side profile of a chess pawn. And the way I'm going to do that quickly is using the polyline tool. So I'm going to start kind of at the head of the pawn. I'm going to click on this point to start. Now what's great about the polyline tool is that it has different modes, and you can switch between modes by pressing the M key on the keyboard. I'm going to find a mode that has a circular arc and that it's going in the direction that I want. There we go. So this is going to be sort of like the start of the head of our pawn. Maybe it looks something like that. Yeah, I'll keep pressing M till I find the tool that I want. I think that looks about right. Okay, now I want to find an arc that kind of goes the opposite way. See if I can find a good one. Okay, I'll have it go about right there. And then, yeah, I'm just sort of playing around with different circular arc shapes. I'll have this one end about right there. And I can do a final little swoop. Maybe I'll have a little bump just for decoration. And then I'll have another final little arc. Oh, I missed it. That was the one I wanted. Oh, missed it again. Okay, yeah. And I'll have it end right there. So I'll hit escape to get out of the polyline tool. And what I've created is a single closed path. And having a single closed path is going to be important, not just for the Revolution tool, but for pretty much any 3D feature requires a sketch that has, if not one closed path, then multiple completely closed paths. So I want to see what that looks like. So I'm going to hit close to close out the sketch. Now, it's actually not going to break anything that the sketch wasn't fully defined. If we go back real quick, The only thing that's fully constrained about this sketch is these two lines here. These can be moved around still. So I'm just kind of going to leave them as they are. Close out the sketch. Now with the sketch still selected, I'm going to select the revolution tool. And there we have our chess pawn. So yeah, go ahead and you don't have to do it exactly like I did, of course. You can have a play around with different shapes with the polyline tool. But then once you have a closed half profile, you close out the sketch and select the revolution tool to form a solid of revolution. So next up, we're actually going to learn about linear patterns. Before we do that, if you want to save your FreeCAD project, you can always go to File, Save, or Save As, and save it wherever you choose. You can also export a FreeCAD project as an STL file, for example. First, you have to select the body in the model tree, then go to File, Export, and there will be an option for an STL in the Files of Type selector. But moving on to linear patterns. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this guy, and I'm going to create a new sketch in the XY plane. This is just going to be a quick demonstration block to show you the basics of linear patterns. So I'm going to create my block just with the rectangle tool. I'm going to give it a width, let's say 100 millimeters, a height of 10, let's say. Okay. I'll close out the sketch. The sketch still selected. I'll use the pad tool to give it some height. Actually 10 millimeters is perfect, so I'll keep that and press OK. Alright, now the thing I'm going to practice a linear pattern on is, let's suppose I want a line of holes going down the length. It would be pretty tedious to have to either draw each and every hole in a sketch, or even to make the pockets individually. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make just one hole. I'm going to click the top surface, add a sketch to the top surface, and my holes are going to be circular, so I'll add a circle. We want to position it, and an easy way to position things sometimes is to use vertical distance and horizontal distance. So I'll show you what that means. I will select the origin and the center of my circle. I'll go up to the dimensions constraint tool, and I'll look for constrain horizontal distance. And let's say I want this hole to be, the starting hole to be 5 millimeters in this direction from this corner. So I'll enter 5, enter. Okay. Now I just need to do the same for the vertical direction. So again, I'll select the origin and my center of my circle. I'll go up and I'll find constrain vertical distance. So I'll choose 5 again. Okay. So I've just positioned this circle without having to create any other geometry, just using dimensions alone. So the last thing I need to do is I need to define the diameter of this circle. So I'll select it, and actually just by clicking the dimension constraint tool, it'll automatically apply a diameter constraint. So I'll kind of put that off to the side over here. Let's say that's Let's say that's 3.2 millimeters in diameter. Okay. I'll now close the sketch, because remember I'm only manually making one hole. So with that sketch still selected, I will turn it into a pocket. And one thing that's kind of handy is if you know that your pocket or your hole is going to go just straight through whatever thing it's going through, instead of having to bother with the dimension, you can just change it to through all. And now it's gone straight through. I'll hit OK. Okay, now it's time to actually use our linear pattern. So linear patterns act on 3D features. So I'll select the 3D feature that I want repeated, and I'll choose the linear pattern tool. So most of what we're going to change is going to be down here. Under mode, we have overall length mode or offset mode. I'm going to show you guys offset mode first, and we'll kind of see what that does. We have an offset amount. Let's change that to let's change that to 5 for now. We'll kind of observe what that does. I'll click outside of that box, and already we can see one more hole being generated because occurrences is currently set to 2. I can increase that value by clicking this little arrow, and I can increase or decrease my offset, and we can define our linear pattern that way. Let's say I want 10 holes. So I'll increase occurrences to 10. And yeah, in that case, if I wanted them to be spaced evenly, because the original part was 10 centimeters long, from center to center they would be 10 millimeters apart, or 1 centimeter apart. So this offset is correct. That got automatically applied. And we are essentially done. I can also show you how we would kind of do this in overall length mode. So what offset does is it just, each time it creates a new occurrence, it adds the offset amount. So it's kind of each one at a time. When we're in overall length mode, you can see it actually automatically updated the overall length to 90. Oh, and actually, you know what? Interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so you can kind of play with the linear pattern, and it'll save you a lot of time for sure. So that's linear patterns. Alright, next we're going to learn about polar patterns. So I'm going to get rid of this entire thing. I'll create a brand new sketch in the XY plane once again. This time I'm going to create kind of a circular shape. Let's see. So yeah, when you create a circle, you're actually prompted to enter a value for the diameter as you create it. Let's say it's 60 millimeters in diameter, centered on the origin. Close. I'll pad our circle to create a little cylinder, and that should work for my purposes. So let's say that this cylinder was going to get attached to something that had a ring pattern of holes, and so bolts need to go through it to attach to the other thing. We can create a ring pattern of holes using a polar pattern. And again, we only have to really make the first hole. So I'm going to create a new sketch on the top surface. I'm going to create a hole, or a circle for now, on the x-axis. And I can select the origin, the center, and I'll do a distance dimension. Yeah, let's call it 20. And I can define the diameter of my circle. We'll call it 6 this time. Close. All right. So to create our polar pattern, first we actually need to create the first feature like before. So I'll create a pocket from that sketch. Once again, I'll go through all. Okay. Now to create my polar pattern, I'll select the feature that I want repeated, and I'll find polar pattern here. It's right next to linear pattern. Alright, so as we first start the tool, we can see that it has a mode, like with linear pattern, but here it's overall angle versus offset angle. So we can kind of start with offset angle. It kind of works the same with just the offset distance from before. Instead of putting the same little distance each time, it does a specific angle each time. So let's say we wanted it to do a 30-degree offset each time it makes a new instance, and let's say we wanted it to do 5 instances. That's kind of what that would look like. But let's say our ring pattern goes all the way around, so a full 360 degrees. We will probably want to use the overall angle mode for that. And let's say there's 6 holes in total. So I can just bump up occurrences to 6. And there we go. There's our polar pattern. So next, we're actually going to go back to the linear pattern, but I'm going to show you something really powerful that you can do with linear patterns. So I'm going to get rid of this guy and create a new sketch, XY plane. I'm going to create a rectangle. And what we're creating now is, let's say we wanted to make a drawer organizer. So think like a tray with different little cubbies or different little pockets inside to hold different sized things. So let's say we want as our sort of base unit to be like a 40 millimeter by 40 millimeter little square. So I'm going to enter 40. 40 again. Okay. I'll hit close. Do a pad. Let's say we want it to also go up by 40. Okay. So now I'm going to create a pocket on the top surface. Just another sketch. I'm going to do that with actually I'm going to do that with a centered rectangle. See why in a second. Okay, I'm going to use the Create External Geometry tool to grab this edge. All I really want is this corner though. So what I'm going to do is select this corner, the origin, and the center of my rectangle, and I'm going to do a constrained symmetrical. Yeah, so now, kind of finish this out, I can do something similar to what we did before with the horizontal and vertical distances, just to kind of get it quick and dirty. Let's say it's just 1, or actually let's say that's 2 millimeters. And I'll do vertical distance the same way. Again, 2 millimeters. Okay. Close the sketch, and we're going to turn that sketch into a pocket. I'm going to have it go down 38, so 2 millimeters away from going all the way through the thing. Okay, so here's where we can start having some fun. What's great about linear patterns is they can act on bodies as well as features. So we can take this entire body, this entire solid that we've created with all the stuff we've done so far, and we can repeat it in a linear pattern. So I'm going to choose, with the body selected, I'm going to choose the linear pattern tool. So as of right now, it's not happy because, you know, it's got this weird red thing out here. It's telling us the result has multiple solids, keep only the first. So basically what that means is all of our things kind of have to be touching because we're just adding on to our original solid. We're not creating new little blobs of stuff out there. So the easiest way to work with this is I'm going to change the mode from overall length to offset. I'm going to change the offset. Let's start with 40, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, I'll click away. So we have, it looks like what's happening is this other unit just got glommed on right after the edge of this one. But kind of a cool effect is we can subtract the width of the wall from the offset. So it was a 2 millimeter wall, so we'll change that to 38. I'll click away to update it. Now we have all the walls the same thickness. So I can increase the occurrences. Let's say we're making kind of a big organizer. Maybe we have 7 units in that direction or so. I'll hit OK. And now I can even repeat that process with this whole body. And so what I'll do is same as before, select the body, go up to linear pattern. And it's kind of a mess right now because it's still trying to go along the x-axis, or that red axis. So where it says direction, I'll change it from base x-axis to base y-axis. So it'll start going that way. And then same as before, instead of overall length, we'll go offset. We'll change that to 38 again. And occurrences, I can do however many I want. Yeah, I'll hit OK. So at this point, your laptop may slow down just a little, especially if it's as old as mine, but have no fear. So yeah, we can stop there, but I can show you a little trick if you actually wanted to make a tray like this with different sized little cubby holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select just anywhere on this top surface. I'm going to do a sketch, and let's say we want like a 2x3 tray pocket here. What I can do is I'll use the external geometry to grab this line, which gives me this corner, and this line, which gives me this corner, which now I can use the regular rectangle tool, which will start at a corner, and I can end at that corner. And now I can use that sketch to make a pocket to sort of get rid of these extra walls that I don't want. So I'm using the pocket tool, and I'm going to tell it, instead of dimension, I'm going to go up to face. I'm going to select one of these faces, doesn't matter which, and it'll make those extra walls go away. So you can make your own kind of custom drawer organizer tray like this. And that about does it for this lesson.